The lesson outcome for this video is, I can describe parts of slope-intercept form. You'll notice on the next screen, I list the lesson outcome again, and it is incorrect. Ignore it and continue watching the video. The lesson outcome for this video is, I can graph linear equations using slope-intercept form. What you see in front of you is an equation that is in slope-intercept form. The reason it is called this is because the slope and the intercept, now we have to be specific about what intercept this is, by the way. It is the Y-intercept. I kind of wish that it was called slope Y-intercept form, but standard verbiage is slope-intercept form. So when we talk about the slope, we talked about that in the last couple of lessons. We talked about the steepness of a line, and then the intercept is the Y-intercept, okay? So where it crosses the y-axis, and we've also been talking about the intercepts in the last couple of lessons. So if you look at this equation right here, y equals mx plus b, what we know is that the m is the slope. Okay, m is the slope. M is the letter we always use to represent slope, so we know that is the slope. And then the b value right here, including whether it's positive or negative, is our y-intercept. Okay, so if I gave you an example of an equation in slope-intercept form, I might say y equals, let's say 2/5 x plus 3. Okay, if we have that, that means our slope of our equation, rise over run, right, is 2/5. So we'd rise 2 and run 5. And our y-intercept from this equation we can find out is 3, or positive 3. So oftentimes we will ask for you to look at an equation in slope-intercept form and tell what the slope is and what the y-intercept is. So off to the side over here I will write m equals 2/5 and b equals 3. Now let's remember that b represents our y-intercept, and our y-intercept is a point on the y-axis. So if it helps, you can think of b equals 3 means the same as 0, 3. So b equals 3 means a y-intercept is at 3, which means 0 on the x-axis, 3 on the y-axis. So you can keep that in mind. Okay, so looking at these equations, write down the slope and the y-intercept for each. So you're going to want to end every single problem, you're going to want to have a value in for the slope and a number in for the y-intercept. Go ahead and write them all down and then check to see how you did. Okay, so remember that the slope is found right next to the x value. In fact, it's the coefficient of the x value. So m is -3, and you could have written that if you wanted to over 1, but you don't have to. And the y-intercept is the value, again, that's over here, including the sign in front of it, so -5. The slope here should have had -1. Now what you have to remember is that in between the x and the negative sign, right there, there is a number 1. Remember, when x stands alone, it has a coefficient of 1. So that would be -1 or -1 over 1 for the slope, and the y-intercept is 11. Over here, the slope is 2/3, and typically we'll write the fraction like that, and the y-intercept is -4. On this one, the slope is 2, again, or 2 over 1, and notice that there is no number over here being added or subtracted. That means your y-intercept, it still exists, it is 0. Because we would typically not write plus 0 in an equation. Down here, this one's written a little bit differently. Notice that the y is over here, but you can either rewrite it or just leave it as it is and find your slope and your y-intercept. So if I wanted to rewrite this as y equals 4x minus 7, just switching the order in which these are written around the equal sign, I can do so. So the slope is 4, or 4 over 1, and the y-intercept is negative 7. This last one is kind of mixed up as well, and again, if you're more comfortable with it being in the right order, or not the right order, but the most common order, go ahead and rewrite it. Y equals, the x term typically goes first. Now be careful, this negative or subtraction symbol right here goes with the 6. It doesn't go with the 5, it goes with the 6. So when we rewrite that, we need to write y equals negative 6x plus 5. Again, if you wanted to. If you think you could do it without it, that's fine as well. The slope is negative 6, or negative 6 over 1, because the slope is the coefficient of x, the number in front of x, and our y-intercept is 5. Okay, so what if I asked you what the slope and the y-intercept are for this equation? Well, you can't tell right away because it's not in the correct form, y equals mx plus b. Okay, this again is what slope-intercept form looks like, which means we need to solve this equation for y. Now the good news is we've already done that this year. We have rewritten equations for a specific variable. In other words, we have solved for y, and another way of saying that is we've written it in function form. So let's go ahead and solve this for y. Remember, we are going to subtract 3x from both sides of the equal sign. Okay, this should seem familiar. And then we are going to, we know that 3x minus 3x cancels out. That makes 0. So now, be careful. We've talked about this a couple times. This negative sign must come down with the 4y. So this has to come down. So negative 4y equals, and then here again is one of those places you have to be careful. Do not combine these. 10 is a constant number, and negative 3x has a variable part. So we can write 10 minus 3x, or we can write negative 3x plus 10, either way. Now we're going to divide both sides by negative 4 so that we can get our y value alone. Negative 4 divided by negative 4 is 1. And now we have y equals what's on the right here. So negative 3x plus 10 over negative 4. Remember, earlier we were just done at this point. We said we've solved for y, and that's great. However, we are going to take this one step further so that we are in this y equals mx plus b, the slope-intercept form. To do that, what we have to remember, this is pretty important, we have to remember that both the negative 3x and the positive 10, both terms in the numerator, need to be divided by the negative 4. Okay? So, when we rewrite this, we're going to say negative 3x needs to be divided by negative 4 plus, because we have that plus sign right here, right? Plus the 10, and that also needs to be divided by negative 4. So we have y equals, now, remember what negative divided by a negative is? It's a positive. So we've got positive, and now we can bring that 3/4 to the front and put the x after it. So we have 3/4 x plus, now this is positive 10 divided by negative 4. Positive divided by negative is negative, so we're going to need a negative, and 10 divided by 4 is 2.5. I didn't think ahead a lot on making this a whole number, and it doesn't have to be a whole number, but that is our final equation written in slope-intercept form. So now if I had asked you from the very beginning to tell me your slope and y-intercept, your slope again comes from the number in front of x, the coefficient of x, which is 3 over 4, and your b value, or your y-intercept, is negative 2.5. So just in case you feel like you would like to practice that one more time, I'm going to put an equation up here. Let's use 2x plus 3y equals 9. Go ahead and pause the video. Again, your goal is to find the slope and the y-intercept, and you can check back to see how you did. Instead of walking through this one verbally, I'm just going to go through the steps, and then you can go ahead and check to see how you did. Hope you got it right.